Okay, I'm with a targeted individual named Mona, and I met her through Derek from PAX International. She relocated from Las Vegas, Nevada, and she came to the Dayton, Ohio area the last 2 months, right?
Hmm.
And so I want her to give a brief testimony about her targeting and her thoughts about who it is, why it's happening, what's happening to her, and you can go ahead and freely tell what's the atrocities against you.
Um, well, there's so many. I had experienced exposure to the heat ray. I get V2K, voice to skull, very bad. Um, Stalking, breaking and entering, um, targeting, targeted every day. They put me in different programs, different experimentations. I was in the torture program, and I've been a victim for over 20 years.
Okay, now, Ed, in your understanding, what is the heat ray?
The heat ray is governmental gun they're using. They use agents, corporations, hospitals, um, police departments, military. They use just different regular neighbors to test out direct energy weapons for
Okay,
funding.
so the heat ray is a direct energy weapon.
Yeah, so I experienced that about 3 or 4 years ago, where my skin bubbled up really badly, and
Where did it bubble up?
everywhere that they were targeting me, on my breast, my arms.
Okay, so V2K, what is V2K for you?
V2K is almost a slang word, but what it really means is voice to skull. It's where there's two ways that an individual, a targeted individual, can get V2K. You can either get it by having an implant, a neural implant implanted in you, which is a receiver and a transmitter. It transmits voices, it picks up voices, it records. You can even, and they're admitting this. If you look it up in the internet, they're downloading images and people's thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using that for neurological testing just as well as different governmental testing. So they do a lot of recording of my thoughts. That occurs usually around 6 p.m. every day. They record everything.
And how do you verify that they record your thoughts? What does that mean to you?
Basically, they download everything that was imaged. They can see through your neural cortex. They can hear what you're saying. They can read your thoughts. So you can hear it. It sounds like a recorder going backwards every day, and it occurs around 6. It goes shh. It sounds just like a rewinder, and they're downloading the images and thoughts of the day. Like if I had said something prior, they can read it and say it out loud what I had said 2 hours ago. So if you don't believe that they can download neurological thoughts, look up downloading um, thoughts into a computer. I forgot what it's called, but they are now able to download, see through your eyes. Um, B2K, as I stated, is called Voice to Skull. And like I said, you were either implanted or they can beam voices in your head using a sonic beam. Okay? That's a piece of equipment that transmit voices. I was implanted in the back of the head and my left ear, my right ear, um, my tooth.
How do you,
So,
now let me ask you, how do you know this is true?
um, because of what occurred after. the implantation. In Vegas, I, I realized I was implanted with all the electricity, like they'll beam something on the tooth and it'll activate it. Um, I was implanted in one tooth. I had it pulled, and the other one has a filling. With the ear, I was implanted when I had an altercation with a police officer. I was implanted on my right ear
And how do you believe that you were implanted through your ear?
because I had never heard a voice in my life.
Right.
Um, in order to have schizophrenia, you have to have gone through things that most people don't know. You have to have taken illegal drugs, had a psychiatric break, and there's just steps because I had discussed it with I had asked a doctor who was a neurological doctor and who had been around people who worked in an insane asylum. You just don't get V2K one day. I had gotten this. They implanted me in Vegas. I was implanted there. I have an implant in the back of my head. Um,
Do you feel it?
oh yeah, I've destroyed it, and I hear it.
How
The
did you destroy it?
use a massager and you, um, I rubbed that spot really heavily. Now, when I came back to Ohio, they said they were going to implant me again. I do believe they had, because when I woke up, I had a hole in my skin, which looks like they inserted some type of needle. And I do believe they implanted me again a couple of weeks ago. Vegas, you can still hear because it's a Vegas implant. Um,
Yeah.
Ohio, you can still hear. It's like all the participants you can hear, and they also hire agents. Oh, sure.
All right. The breaking and entering. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Every time I live by myself right now, I live it with my aunt. When she was gone, I believe they implanted me the last time. But breaking and entering occurs regularly. They'll get keys to your apartment. They tear up always bras, panties. Um, they destroy, like, they'll let you know that they were there because they'll do some form of vandalism and
Mm-hmm.
or you'll just notice things are different. Like you'll hear sounds in your apartment that weren't there before. And it occurs regularly with targeted individuals.
All right. Now, when you spoke about targeting, what exactly did you mean?
What do you mean?
So you said you're being targeted. What does that mean to you?
It means that you are a human trafficked slave. This is human trafficking. And what's so hideous about it is that there's not laws being made to stop it. Every place you go, they're hiring people, they're hiring your neighbors to aim things at you, to torture you,
Mm-hmm.
or experiment on you. And that's going from state to state. That's human trafficking because you're paying people to do things to other people. Okay? And human trafficking is not just trafficking in children or trafficking in adults for sexual purposes. Human trafficking can be trafficking in humans for experimental purposes. I mean, it's illegal to human traffic, but they do it. Slavery is illegal, but this is mental slavery. Sure.
All right. Now, the program. You said the word program. What does that mean?
I mean, it is a program. It is the program. You're getting funding for direct energy testing. This is a governmental program as far as the output. This is a medical program as far as the output. Sure.
Yeah. Output. What do you mean by output?
They're collecting neurological data for millions of dollars, for $50,000 contracts, for neurological contracts. With this equipment, they can better understand the mind, They can understand control. They can understand how to fight in the battlefield without having to lose soldiers. But so this is human trafficking, and the only people that aren't getting paid for these direct energy contracts are the victims. They're putting you on watch lists, and then they're using you as human slaves for funding. That's what makes it slavery, and that's what makes it human contract, and that's what makes it human trafficking.
Now, who do you think is behind the payment? Because people are getting paid to do this. Where does the money come from, do you think?
Um, with my situation, it might be different from yours. I always tell people you have to start where you feel like your world changed. Okay, so if I'm let's say Alice in Wonderland, her world didn't change when she was on the surface. Her world changed when she went down to the rabbit hole. So you have to ask yourself, when did you start burrowing down into the rabbit hole? Funding can be, this is for contracts. You have to look it up. It's not just, it is your neighbor doing it for revenge. It can be an individual, but that person becomes an agent. So they're an agent liking to torture you, but they're still getting governmental contracts. They're still getting medical contract and funding for testing, CIA torture. You're still getting paid to do this. So it's through various institutions. It can be the military, it can be the government, but it's also the little men that are getting paid to target people on the watch list.
And when you say little men, what do you mean by that?
Little men are your neighbors, people that they hire in the know to do this. They can be working at a grocery store or a restaurant, and that restaurant knows to put stuff in your food. Your neighbor knows to target you. People within this circle know whether the police call them up or the hospital or whatever, call them up and say, hey, we got a new target for you. She just moved to town. We need you to target her. Getting paid to do this, human trafficking.
Okay, now we spoke about what? The program experiments?
Experiments vary. If you ever want to understand what's going on, you should read, or rather you should view some of the early MKUltra videos. MKUltra, because in essence, this is a mind control program. And every time you say that, people want to say, oh, you're crazy. This is sci-fi. No, mind control experimentation exists, and it does exist. It still exists. So they'll tell you, as part of the experimentation, to eat or to cough, or you can't do this. That's part of the mind control part of the experimentation. Directed energy, the heat ray, the sonic beam, all of that is part of the directed energy weapons experimentation. Torture, CIA program. The CIA pays people to be in torture programs.
Now, next, torture program. Explain what you believe that is, the torture program.
CIA, well, you torture people to see the psychology of the mind. And to be in a torture program is to constantly be tortured using different various directed energy weapons. So you get paid by the CIA. You're in a CIA program, or you're in a military program, or you're in an Air Force base, a medical program with the hospitals. All these, you're in a police program. The police do this. So all these people are in the know, and they have special departments for the MKUltra program. MKUltra, for the mind control and torture program. And they're getting paid. So, why and how they get away with it is that there's no laws out there that says this is illegal. Very few states are going up and saying directed energy weapons testing on American citizens is illegal. Because of that, it's a legal crime. And that's why it's expanding so much.
What have you lost because you are tortured and abused in this way? What have they taken from you?
I've lost everything. I mean, some days I've been very depressed, but people don't know in my family, so I have to pretend like I'm not. Um, I've lost jobs. I've lost my life. I
And what do you
lost
say?
my.
What do you mean? Because you're alive. You haven't lost your life. What does that mean to you?
I have no happiness. I have no mate. I have no freedom of choice. All of that has been taken away from me. I have no income. Um, these are things that this country promises you. It promises you if you work hard, you you'll be able to get somewhere in life. I have degrees. I have
What
worked.
degrees do you have?
I have a bachelor's degree. I've worked since I was 16. I've worked overtime. I've raised a child by myself. I've tried to follow the rules and the conduct of each state I've lived in, and yet I'm tortured and enslaved like it all meant nothing. It does mean nothing because this is mental and physical slavery.
What do you want?
I want this to stop. I want my perpetrators, a lot of whom I know, to be prosecuted. I'm angry that this society lies about being a free country. It's not a free country. It's a country free to victimize people as long as you're in the know. Um, and I understand that this goes on from government to government. That's the thing. See, this program, the McUltra program, the directed energy program, all this is because of the government studying this not only in America, but in China and Russia and Japan and Australia, all these places just. And so because of this, everybody has to say that this is uh, a group delusion, and that's what makes me upset. Social media has said that this is a social media psychosis,
Oh,
and you should read
that's
the.
interesting.
Yeah, it's an article. It says that it's spreading, that there's a
A s-
social media psychosis of people believing they're targeted.
Who do you
That
believe came up with that term? Because that's interesting.
it's on the internet. It's an actual lady who's a doctor who wrote that in a university journal. No, it's not a social media psychosis. It's not a group psychosis. If you weren't so dang lazy and you looked up the fact that there's patents on there, that there's testing and grants being given, that people are all saying the same thing here and in other countries, if you weren't so damn lazy and you were able to understand that there's truth and what's in your face, truth and science and truth and facts, you wouldn't call it a social media psychosis. That's the stupidest, the dumbest thing. So what you're saying is that a group of people are saying this, it's spreading, so it's a psychosis. But you're not using the research. Um, you're not in tune enough to do research to see if there's truth in what's being said.
Okay, now we're gonna end, and I just want to ask you, as a quote unquote targeted individual, and I believe this term is, uh, uh, it's a strange term to describe millions of people where a war machine is being waged against us. What do you think we should do as victims of this world, uh, this new world order, World War III, electromagnetic warfare?
I like that. I like that you said this World War III because it is. You have literally, they have declared war on the average citizen. So what you need to do, and I see people doing this, and it's kind of frustrating to me. What's done is that we'll all get on conference calls, And the conference call is great because you get to know people. But what we have to understand is that our numbers are growing. So we don't have time to just talk. We have to get together as a unit. And we have to fight this. We have to fight with laws. We have to fight with numbers. We have to fight with
Numbers meaning what?
we have the numbers now to start doing something about this. We have to start getting lawyers who are going to defend us, human rights lawyers as numbers. We have to start not just talking. Talking time is over. They've been doing this to us for 30 years or more. We have to get we have to start pushing to have this stop. This is taking our lives, and people are getting rich off of it, and and they're profiting from our misery. So we have to start formulating as a unit, as a whole. That means not just Ohio. That means Montana and New York. We all have to get together. And then after we get together, we have to stop saying, Jan's a perp, John's not. Sue's doing this, we don't have time to hate each other. All we have time to do is to move and keep moving until this shit stops.
And what would be the conclusion that you'd like to say right now in a couple of sentences, and then we'll stop?
That targeted individuals have to understand that they have to start fighting back. Okay? I have written affidavits and I have tried my best to fight back in a government that's corrupt. But if we get together and if we start doing things, start signing petitions, start getting lawyers, start moving as a whole unit, trying to get laws passed saying, this is unacceptable. You know, you're paying people to take my life. Okay? You know it and I know it. And someone needs to be held accountable. Unless we start doing that, they're going to keep doing it. We have to get off the conference call and get onto the streets and make this shit end.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Thank you for listening.